PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. Hey, what's up, everybody? Well, that didn't do good for my voice at all. My God, I'm losing my voice. I am here crackling up a storm like I'm a 13-year-old boy. I'm not sure what's going on. So it was not a good idea for me to try to do the Anzellan hey, but hey. We are here on PLD Projects, another episode of Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast. I am your host, PLD. With me, as always, the hairiest of sidekicks with that long, flowing golden locks. Look at that sexy beast. Matty Gunner, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm just a long week, putting in the hours. We got a big, if anyone follows me on socials outside of Star Wars, I got something big coming up in July. So they put in heavy hours, late hours in. So
put the time in.
What's that?
Putting the time in.
Putting the time in, yeah. Putting in the hours. I haven't quite hit 80,000, but
well on your way.
We're getting there.
You're getting there.
How you doing?
Same, man. It's been busy ever since Jarvie took his time off. Obviously, we had to step up and help out with the Declassifieds, who have been doing the Man of 1,000,001 podcast streams now at this point, which is okay. I'm actually having a good time with it. We just recorded, obviously, yesterday we recorded Mission Impossible 3 with fellow patron Matthew Kearns and yourself. And that's going to come out on Saturday. It was a fun conversation about our favorite Mission Impossible movie. I also recorded Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade with two media overweight dudes on film, myself and PJ Campbell yesterday. That went out yesterday. Actually, had some great feedback already, and that was a lot of fun as well. Doesn't stop, man. Just doesn't stop.
Nope. The world does not stop. We keep, as my co-host of the ONU MMA show, Jamie Jones, would say, life is dope and we do dope shit. So just keep moving.
Bingo. And speaking of keeping moving, there's a lot of news we got to talk about this week. Sometimes Holy Snokes, I curate all our news mostly from Star Wars News Net because they're doing just a great job. It's a one-stop shop for my news. Although this week I will say I got something away from there because it was fun enough for me to talk about. Sometimes I'm like I look at the news bits. I'm like, this is kind of fun, but nothing really here. But this week I got a couple of juicy stories to talk about before we get into some of our other looks at the franchise here. So without further ado, let's get right into our news. I'm going to start off with a small piece of news, not even really a news bit, just something I want to gush about a little bit. Variety had an actor-on-actor interview about 35 minutes like that with Hayden Christensen and Diego Luna sitting down like face to face, just with each other, no mediator or anything like that, just having a conversation about their time in Star Wars. And I'm not sure who thought to put this together, but what a great idea. You have Hayden Christensen. They're both the same age, both in their 40s. Hayden Christensen obviously doing Star Wars in his 20s. Does not look it at all. Absolutely.
No, both look fantastic.
So Hayden in his 20s had just a different experience going up in the prequels and working with George and everything else. And then you have Diego, who's come into the Disney era with Rogue One and Andor. But they have such a lot in common and a lot in differences as well. It was great hearing both their sides of the story. Did you watch it? What did you think of it?
I did. I got to watch it literally as soon as it dropped. I know it dropped over here earlier for us than it did for you guys over there. I think we got it like 2 days earlier. And I sent it to the Thank the Maker group chat. I got to shout out Stacy from the Thank the Maker group chat. She is a huge Hayden. She loves Hayden. Loves Hayden. Fair. So I sent it, and it was the video was geo blocked because most of them live in the US. So the video was geo blocked. Everyone was like, no. So I got to watch it a little bit earlier, and yeah, it was great. I love those. I love the actor roundtables that they do. There was one that had it was Willem Dafoe. There was an Inside the Actors Studio, I think it was, where Pedro Pascal did it with Willem Dafoe.
Right, I remember that.
And that was one of the most fascinating ones that I've ever watched. And yeah, just watching two people and this is in excuse me, this is like two people who are two people who are great at their craft,
Right.
be it sports, music, movies, like two people who are legitimately great
Right.
at their craft, that have spent, you know, the 80,000 hours perfecting their craft is incredible. And Hayden, you know, a lot of people don't know him from anything outside of Star Wars. We do, because we're active movie lovers. I'd never seen, I keep forgetting the name of it, but the movie that Diego keep references is the one that it's like his first movie.
Oh, to Mama Tambien?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
like he's mentioned that so many times now that I'm like, I need to go and watch that movie.
Oh, yeah, it's a phenomenal movie. He's wonderful in it.
Really? Okay. I need
Yeah.
to go watch that.
I liked watching him. Again, I agree. And Hayden Christensen too. He got some flack for his performances as Anakin back in the day, but he's actually a really good performer in movies like Life is a House, things of that nature as well. But I love it watching them kind of geek out. They still felt like a little bit like us in a way. Diego especially had those moments. He's like, I want to know about what you thought. I love the fact when he came in, he's like, you're playing the character, and Anakin's like, yeah, he's definitely a great character. No, he's the character.
It seems like, because there were moments, and sometimes I feel this way too, that like Hayden will say that like, oh, I watched all of Clone Wars, I watched all of Rebels.
Right.
I'm like, did you really, or did you just watch like the key moments of? And that's not me being like cynical, but it's just like, the man is a father. He lives on a farm, and he's preparing to get ready to reprise a role that he was chastised for by the wider world. I wouldn't blame him for just being like, as me and my friend like to call some of our other friends, the bare minimum boys, and just like researching the key moments. But when he started talking about moments in Andor or moments in Rogue One, and like praising Diego for his performances, it was really cool to see like Diego was genuinely shocked. He was like,
yeah,
you watched that? Like,
right.
You like the guy who plays the guy
Right.
watched what I did.
Right.
And that, I thought that was really cool for Diego to just be like, wow.
Yeah. It was very heartwarming overall. I love getting. I hope we can get more of these, especially because of
who are two that you would love to see?
Oh,
so I was two people you would love to sit down.
I was just starting to think of that, because the reason why I mentioned it specifically because like it's great seeing Hayden and Ewan together. Obviously, have the friendship, but it's really interesting seeing Hayden and Diego from like totally different sides of things. I almost want to see somebody from like the original trilogy, whether it be like, I don't know, maybe like maybe a Harrison Ford, like talking to. Well, he was actually in the sequel trilogy as well, obviously. So maybe somebody like I don't know, who we got? Maybe Ian McDiarmid with someone like maybe Andy Serkis, even though they didn't really work. Any worked in Secret Service, but some like those kind of. They played like the villains together, so you got to see different sides of things or whatever. Or like even going into the television side of things, somebody like from Obi-Wan, maybe somebody like maybe I don't know. I just watched Obi-Wan again, so Reva there, Moses Ingram, and having her talk to maybe someone from like maybe Natalie Portman, like somebody like that, like kind of like totally like total. I like the totally separate versions that both can kind of like learn from each other and tell each other similar stories, but that have some of their own unique sides of things. What about you? What would you like to say?
Harrison Ford, and obviously it couldn't happen now, but Sir Christopher Lee. Those two,
yeah, story,
because they've been around for so long.
Right.
Like their careers like more than speak for themselves. I'm just like, I want to hear like from both of you.
You know what? I changed my. If we're gonna invoke like people who have passed, give me Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness together.
Oh yeah, doing an episode on. Someone mentioned this. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Nick on Thank the Maker that said that they would love to see a round table of people who are both voiced and played.
Add James Arnold Taylor to it, absolutely. Like Ewan and Stephen Stanton, even
have like all of them do a round table and talk about not this. We got the look behind the scenes of the series, but like the character of Obi-Wan and how they each approached it. Absolutely. I think doing something like that would be really cool, because you could also do it with like Hayden and Matt Lanter. You could get Rosario Dawson with Ashley Eckstein.
I was about to say that would be even if we could actually still do Ewan and James Arnold Taylor would be kind of cool together. I think that's actually a great idea. I'd love to see those kind of characters like combine their knowledge and their different approaches to things. And I mean, I love the animated side of things so much as well. So like getting that kind of connection with that would be great. I love that idea.
I think the one to start with would be Rosario and Ashley.
Yeah, that would be good too. Yeah, and you know what? I'll throw one more out there. This is a little bit away from everything. Just if we can get it, why not? Let's get Lucas and Filoni.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, obviously they talk all the time. It kind of goes against my original pitch of like people who are separate, but like the fact that they know each other so well, just hearing them talk about Star Wars together would be amazing.
I'll add one more to that. I think you got to throw Sam Witwer in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got to do that in there. Absolutely.
Because like you hear the stories of how he was the only one that would check Dave.
Right.
Set and be like, no, that's not how it works. And Dave would be like, yeah, you're right. I feel like if that had been like you or me, there's like some random stagehand working on the show, and we're going like, Dave, I'm not sure George would have done it like that. He would have been like, shut up, go back to work, like do what you're doing. But like he respects Sam Witwer enough to he'd be like, yeah, you're right.
To be fair, Filoni would have been very polite about saying shut up and go away. But yeah, you're right, absolutely. All right, that's the cool thing. So definitely go check that out on Variety if you are looking for any heartwarming Star Wars content that definitely fits that bill, checks off that box, so to speak. Next up, we're going to talk about two pieces of news that are going to combine into one. I'm going to call it the Mangold stuff, as we say. Two different articles on Star Wars News Net they mentioned. First one is that it's been mentioned he's been doing Indiana Jones, obviously coming out soon, Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny.
Next week, right?
It's the 30th, so it's 2 weeks away, or a week and a half, I guess, away. Although I will say, despite the initial mediocre kind of or mid kind of reviews, it's been kind of ticking upward as more reviewers start seeing it. Mark Ellis, for example, said he loved it, and I trust Mark Ellis's opinion.
I'm pretty sure I saw Goose from Triad of the Force tweeted something that was just as good as Temple of Doom, and I was just like, excuse me, what?
There you go.
Like he may have said that. I'll have to pull up the tweet and like see if that is actually what he said. But yeah, a lot of people are giving it great reviews, and not being funny. Like, didn't Revenge of the Sith also premiere at Cannes?
It did.
I'm not gonna trust the opinions of people that go to Cannes for a movie like Indie or Star Wars.
I agree. It's a different kind of audience for it. Absolutely.
They gave Top Gun. Let's be fair. They gave Top Gun Maverick an applause because it was Tom Cruise.
Absolutely, he's the guy who saved cinema. And it was also earmarked towards that kind of audience to a degree. It still had that kind of pedigree, that kind of older white male kind of thing in a way, that older white male generation of being military propaganda, whatever you want to say it is. And I love Top Gun Maverick, so I'm not knocking it for what it is. But it kind of definitely ticks that box a little bit more, I think, than a random adventure with some kind of time travel kind of stuff that might be involved in India. I don't even know, but we'll get there when we get there. But it's ticking upwards. That's why I'm excited about it. I can't wait for it. But regardless, back to Mangold in general. Finishing that up, he's going to be filming another movie with Timothée Chalamet, the Bob Dylan biopic he's been like aiming for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Me
Chalamet
too.
Playing Bob Dylan is a choice.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting. I'm still not entirely sold on Timothée Chalamet. I think he's a very talented person, but sometimes I see Timothée Chalamet instead of seeing a character.
Apparently, he is incredible as Willy Wonka.
I wouldn't doubt it. It seems like a party he could disappear into.
Mm.
But either way, that movie's supposed to wrap in August. And according to this conversation he was having about that, his plan was to start writing his Star Wars film in October, in the fall. Obviously, we know the WGA strike is still going on. And even though I don't actually believe he's a member of the WGA, he has mentioned that he will support the writers and likely not work on any scripts in solidarity with them. I guess this is all obviously part and parcel. Like if the writer's strike is over by October, which hopefully it is by October, that's what I'm hoping. I mean, who knows? Then that's when he would start to write his Star Wars film, which actually makes up from the timeline, which we're going to go into later. But the other piece of news about Mangold, and I'll let you
real quick, just to that, I've been told in the past by a Star Wars podcast that I trust very well that have like told me things that have been spot on a couple of times, that he already had the general idea of what he wanted the story he wanted his movie to tell. So I think he's already got like the foundation laid for it. But I think if like in October, I think that's when he's going to be like, right, I'm going to sit down and like start doing the Charlie Day with the red string on the wall and like really start fleshing it out. But I know, as I said, these guys have never steered me wrong before. So from what I've heard, he's got the general idea already like down.
Well, it definitely makes sense because I think this actually kind of goes into the next part of what I was going to talk about. He pitched this a while. He pitched this during Indy to Kathy. I kind of have the feeling it was pitched as I think it was already pretty much the idea was there when he pitched
I think it was on set.
Yeah, it was on set. It was definitely on set. And I think the idea was already there in his mind. I think he had a pretty solid foundation already before he pitched it. So I would agree. I would admit that's probably ready to go as far as that goes. But he mentioned specifically the cool thing about this. He was surprised. I'll give you the quote exactly what he said. He goes, "Well, I've talked to Lucasfilm before and even worked a bit before on other projects. There was, if you remember correctly, he was kind of linked to a Boba Fett film at one point way back in the day.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Briefly, and it kind of faded out. So I think this is what he's referring to. I talked to Lucasfilm before and even worked a bit before in other projects. I'm always interested in what's going on there and have friends who work on other Star Wars projects. But I understood that much of what they were doing was kind of continuing the saga forward. So when I mentioned to Kathy the idea that I had about going backward, really far backward, I was surprised that it excited her and the other wonderful people she works with at Lucasfilm. For me, it's about I want to be a part of the saga, but I also don't want to be holding so much lore in the air that you can hardly tell a story. What I really wanted to do, what I told her, was just can we make a kind of the 10 Commandments of the Force, kind of origin story of how the Force came to be known, understood, wielded, and harnessed.
Yeah, like Ben-Hur of
Absolutely. The interesting side to me, and I get it in a way, is I think sometimes Star Wars can be intimidating. I mean, not just because it's IP, not just because it's such a big
second biggest franchise in the world. Yeah,
right. It's not that, and probably the first as far as legendary overall kind of thing. But the idea that a lot of the stuff is done in these like spaces in between stuff, and that there's so much you have to like sink into. That like you might not want to sink into. You might be like you said before, like Hayden watching Rebels and everything else. Some of these filmmakers and storytellers don't really want to get into the thick of all of that. I got to know what's happening with this character. I can't use this character because I can't do this because I mean Tony Gilroy is someone very similar who's trying to pretty much stay away from all that as much as he can, even though he even admitted he has to go into that for season 2 a little bit. So I think Mangold probably was like, I don't want to get into that because there's so much going on here. But if I can tell a story in the Star Wars universe and tell it kind of like completely away from all of that and be on my own, that's less intimidating. That's somewhere a storyteller can do. And I think there's room for both in the overall universe, so to speak. And if we can get some great storytellers who want to tell their own slice of Star Wars and not be beholden to what's going on, I think that's a good thing. Because we can have both. We can have the Filoni types who want to get into the heart of the matter, and other people who want to get into that part of it. But getting some other storytellers in that maybe just don't want to get in that deep, I think it's a good thing for Star Wars. What's your thoughts on that?
Mangold is a master storyteller. You've only got to watch Logan to know that what he is capable of. So he's one of the few people. Tony Gilroy is another where I'm just like, just do you. Don't allow Disney and Lucasfilm to take too much of the reins. Obviously, they have their formula of what sells. Star Wars sells to children. It always has done. It always will do. Sorry to you nerds that refuse to accept that, but I'm going to want to buy a bunch of Black Series figures from this movie. Of like the random characters. I have a B2 Emo, a Tech, what else have I got over there? A Chirrut and a Tika Black Series. So you can tell the kind of things that I look at when I'm looking for obscure characters.
Right.
Like if we go too deep into, if we keep going back to the same time frame, like we're so limited on what we could potentially do. But imagine if we could go back and do like a Spartacus of Star Wars, like the Spartacus Jedi who is like fighting in a pit full of Sith.
Right. Oh God, you're writing all new stuff for me. Absolutely. Let these people do it for sure.
Russell Crowe. So I get into. In fact, scrap Gladiator 2 and set it in Star Wars.
Oh, you know what? Having Ridley Scott do a Star Wars film and do a Gladiator style, I'm
I know
all
you
aboard
love that.
I would love that. I'm a big Ridley Scott fan. You know that. So, and that's exactly what I mean, though. Getting somebody to do like Ridley Scott wouldn't want to be beholden to all the Star Wars stuff. He's like an 80-year-old man. He's not going. I don't want to learn all that stuff. But give me a spot, well carved out place in the universe. Absolutely.
There's also certain filmmakers where like they've earned the right to be like, no. You don't tell me how to tell my story.
Right. Absolutely.
And got people like Ridley Scott and Tony Gilroy, and especially James Mangold. Like, if Steven Spielberg said, "Hey, George is my boy. I'll do one for him. I'll do another. I'll do a Star Wars movie. You want me to do? You want me to do a bloody Skeleton Crew movie and make it like E.T.? Cool. I'll do it. You want me to do a movie with the E.T. characters because they're in Star Wars? I'll do it. Are you gonna tell Steven Spielberg what to do?
No, pretty much
no.
Yeah, pretty much.
just people. There are some directors like this. What's her name? I keep forgetting her name. It's really bad. We're a Star Wars podcast. There's Shamin.
Oh, Shamin Shinoy.
Yes. Like she's still Shamin Obey-Chinoy.
Yes.
I am terrible with saying her name. I never want to try it because I always know I'm going to mispronounce it. They're like, she's still fairly new.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be as offended if Disney and Lucasfilm like pulled her in and was like, "Hey, can you tweak your movie to be more like this kind of a thing?"
Right.
Whereas Mangold is just like, "Don't you dare!" Like,
that's
a master filmmaker. He's earned his stripes.
I mean, I think there is a sense of I almost completely agree with you. I do think that Lucasfilm does have the responsibility to, like, if Mangold's thing just goes against everything that George created somehow, if there's something like that's glaringly wrong, to say, well, I like your story, I like the idea, but this is a little bit off. I mean, there's a difference between that and trying to control the narrative. Like, controlling the narrative is wrong. Controlling the whole thing is wrong. I do think they have a little bit of responsibility to make sure it does fit in the overall landscape, which makes it easier back in the day if you're setting it so far away and not into the canon kind of thing. And I don't believe, I think Mangold is a storyteller who knows the universe. He's a Star Wars fan. So
someone has experienced this Mangold in the art of filmmaking. He knows how to make a He could make a Star Wars movie in his sleep.
As long as we're all set up, I don't think we would be. I'm just saying there's a danger to kind of go, okay, here it is. I'm not going to talk to you again. But there's a world of difference between that and what sometimes can happen when, like, you have to do this, and have a checklist. That's a different thing. I think it's a good filmmaker, a great filmmaker will be willing to, because they have to say, Mangold's got to say, you know what? Yes, it's my story. Yes, it's my world. But I am entering into somebody else's sandbox to a degree. So he wants to make it sure it's not like overflowing outside the sandbox, so to speak. I want to say in the sandbox enough. But maybe in the outliers, maybe do something new in the sandbox, maybe create a second story of the sandbox or something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, but to summarize my point, there's certain filmmakers that it's like, you wouldn't tell Mozart how to write a symphony, you wouldn't tell Picasso how to paint a picture. There's certain filmmakers you're just like, okay, we'll give you general outline what we want, go do you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, it's definitely a fine line.
There's a fine line.
You don't go black, and there's no black and white. There's definitely a shade of gray somewhere in the middle. And as long as you respect each other, and both, there's a division of respect between the director and Lucasfilm as a whole, then I think that's where the best Star Wars will eventually come. That's my thoughts. But all right, well, that's the Mangold stuff. Let's get into a topic which is not usually my forte, although I'm strangely excited about. We're going to gaming. Some gaming news dropped. I'll talk about the small piece first, and then we'll break into the bigger piece. Star Wars 1313 was a game that was developed for a while and then shelved. It never came to light. Well, the news dropped today that the game's director, Dominic Robillard, is now set to return to Star Wars because he's going to be working on Amy Hennig's future Star Wars title. Amy Hennig, best known obviously for Uncharted, and she's been creating a Star Wars open world game, and now she has Dominic Rosenberg, who had done a lot of Star Wars work previously. I don't know, because I've never really played these games. I don't know. I never got to see what Star Wars 1313 was, but the guy sounded like such a big Star Wars fan. And if he took such a long time in that universe, I can't figure it'll be hard for him to get back into that mode. I think this has got to be a good thing, right? I mean, Uncharted was an unqualified success, obviously, one of the biggest games in the world at the time. And you add
very hit and miss for me. I know, like friends of ours, like Alex Damon and like your podcast partner Christian Harloff are big fans of Uncharted. A lot of it, I was like, I played a lot of Tomb Raider as a kid, and a lot of Uncharted. I always felt like this is just like them trying to do an updated Tomb Raider.
Perhaps, but it's successful.
But exactly, this is what I'm saying. Like you can't argue with this. It's one of the biggest gaming franchises in the world. Had to the point they did a movie and got two of the biggest movie stars of all time, Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland, to be in the movies. So it's obviously it's doing something right.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would say current Tom Holland, also all-time Tom Holland, not there yet, but yes, current movie stars. Okay.
I would say he's on the edge.
But regardless, this is obviously past my time. I haven't played games in forever. My last real game I think that I sat down and
Grandpa
was Knights of the Old Republic, completely honestly. And then I did Lord of the Rings online for a bit. That was really the last one.
But there you go. KOTOR's a perfect example. It wasn't exactly open world, and I think one day we should have Kev Smets on to talk about, do like a Legacy of KOTOR episode or something. It wasn't like open world, but you could still like walk around freely. I feel like KOTOR would have been. God, I hope they do the remake. Please,
yeah,
shit together and do the remake.
Everybody talks about open world games, and I don't necessarily even know what the definition of that is, because quite frankly, I know that's like, it basically means that you are free to explore things.
Games like Fallout and Uncharted.
But some games feel like there's open world, but then there's like, you still got a story to tell. So you still got to go in a set kind of orders. So I guess there's levels, degree of difficulty, so to speak.
They'll all have like a general story through line, but then you have a game like Mass Effect where you can just go and do, or Destiny, where you can just go off. Even like during the story, you can go off and do anything else.
And that's fair to say, but like you mentioned, like KOTOR kind of had like a little open feel to a degree. This is open world, but let's get into our bigger topic from the gaming news. Is that now the surprise announcement of Star Wars Outlaws, which is being touted as the first true open world Star Wars game. So I'm like, what's a true open world versus what's not? Either way, I don't really care either way what it is. Like, define it, what you want to do it. I don't really care about advertising as far as that goes. But I did take a look at the trailer. We had a trailer, and then the next day we got a 10-minute gameplay footage, which is what everybody loves. I know Sean Sullivan always like jokes around like, I don't want to see a trailer that doesn't involve gameplay footage. It's ridiculous.
Shout out to Sully. I'm the same. When I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, we're going to be talking about this on Thursday, and I'm going to have no idea what to say because I'm the gamer of the two of us, and I haven't seen any gameplay. So I don't know what the hell to say. So luckily they put out the 10 minutes of gameplay.
But let's break it down a little bit. Obviously, we got the scoundrel female character, Kay Vess, who seems like she's Dr. Aphra-esque, some kind of scoundrelist kind of character. On the trailer, she's playing some back in a cantina. She's being chased by bounty hunters. She gets to meet the supposedly sexy commando droid ND5. Got a trench coat on, and all of a sudden he becomes a sexy droid, I guess. Fine, I guess.
Are we doing this now? Droids are hot now.
I guess that's
okay. We're going from hot clones to hot droids. Okay.
And obviously her pet alien creature Nyx, was it an Alatex? I can't remember the exact name.
Watch people drop, bro. I'm telling you, watch people drop nubs like a sack of potatoes real quick.
And you know what? You know who won't carry it? T. Bradley Baker, because he voices both.
There you go. T. Bradley Baker's getting paid for voicing both. But I tell you, bro, every time a new cute creature comes around, Grogu got dropped for Nubs. Nubs is gonna get dropped for Nyx.
And in the gameplay trailer, we also got to meet another character who I guess is working with Kay, which a lot of people say suspiciously looks like Kyle Katarn from
That is Kyle Katarn.
EU.
That's Kyle Katarn.
Well, here's the thing I have to say about that. Is it going to be actually Kyle Katarn, or is it most likely, is it just inspired by, I like Kyle
That's
Katarn,
inspired by. That's not inspiration. That's straight up duplication. That is Kyle Katarn.
I will bet
I'm
you
not gonna
$500,000 he's not going to be named Kyle Katarn.
That's probably not going to be his. I know for a fact that's not his name. But I'm gonna call him Kyle Katarn because he's dressed like Kyle Katarn. He looks like Kyle Katarn. He's probably got Kyle Katarn's blaster. There's only so much that Lucasfilm can be like, aha, this is a little nod to the fans before we go. That's not a nod to the fans. That's you taking someone else's idea and putting your own spin on it. Like, we're not stupid. That's got literally everyone that I've seen talk about this game said that's Kyle Katarn. In one fashion or another, like they're either on the same side as me of like that's not actually Kyle Katarn, but wink wink, come on, we know where you got the idea from. And there's some people that are genuinely hoping that it is Kyle Katarn just under like a different alias. And to those people, I say, good luck.
Good luck. People take it so seriously and get so like heavily invested in it. This is what leads to disappointment a lot of times, I think, honestly. That's why I keep pushing out. I'm like, this is not going to be Kyle Katarn. It might tick off some Kyle Katarn boxes for you, and you might have a good time with it, but don't be so invested. There's not going to be some kind of reveal in the third act where all of a sudden Jen's going to go, my real name is Kyle Katarn. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
But as the character itself and the basis for that character, guys,
it's
come on. All I want to know is, and every time they bring up bounty hunters, where the hell is Dengar?
Never used. Very, very rarely used. I get it. I agree. I will say, I got to tell you, and I'll let you break down the gameplay trailer or the gameplay part of it, because that's beyond me at this point a little bit. I was more excited about this than I was even about Jedi Survivor, which surprised me. Or Fallen Order, for that matter, both the Jedi games. I don't know what about it was, because technically I would love to play a Jedi theoretically, and that's the thing. But like, something about the feel for this game just felt very much take place between Empire and Return of the Jedi, supposedly. It just, I don't know, it felt kind of fun. It just felt like a great, like, kind of like take it away from the overall lore a little bit. Just have fun in the world. I really enjoyed it to the point where like, maybe I'll get an Xbox for this. Will I? I don't know. Probably not. But it actually sparked the possibility for me in the first time.
Don't say that if your son's in the same room, because he's going to hold you to it.
Yeah, luckily he's upstairs. The Ember is there, though, for the first time in a long time. I haven't been inspired to try to do something like that in quite a while. But yeah, I enjoyed the trailer quite a bit. I enjoyed the character of Kay. She seems like a really fun character to play. I liked ND5. I liked Nyx. I got suckered in by the cuteness of Nyx. What did you think? And tell me about the gameplay as far as that goes.
I like the gameplay. I agree with you. It's fun to play a Star Wars game and not play as a Jedi for once. My favorite Star Wars game was always Star Wars Racer. That was always my favorite one, because I love like Need for Speed and Gran Turismo growing up. So getting to play a Star Wars version of that, I was always like, hell yeah.
Where is Riot Racing, by the way? Let's be honest. Where is Riot Racing?
I keep saying this, like, do a Star Wars Racer remake with some DLC of Riot Racing. Yeah, that would be great. But there's a lot of familiarity. Obviously, we get to explore Tatooine, and I see a lot of people be like, "Oh, here we go. We're going back to Guys, Tatooine is a very important planet in Star Wars. We are going to go back there a few times. Deal with it. But this time we get to explore it on our own. If I'm not mistaken, I think Kijimi is another one of the planets that we get to go to. That'll be cool. Yeah, like open world games like Mass Effect are very easy to get lost in and very easy to get immersed in. So I feel like that's going to have a different look, a different feel to it than Fallen Order or Survivor, because you can really like throw yourself into it. And instead of following like a straight story plot, yeah, that's going to be there, but like you can go off and do your own thing. And one thing I do love is that the choices you make throughout the game they affect the consequences and the story. This is something that I've been pushing for video games to do for a long time. I love the stealth aspect. Obviously, Metal Gear Solid, that's my favorite gaming franchise ever.
Jam.
Like that's my favorite franchise ever. So having a stealth thing, I heard Alex say that he would have loved for there to have been a stealth element in Jedi Survivor, and I 100% agree. If you'd had like Cal sneaking around an Imperial base or something, that would have been great. What other things did I notice? The different variations of blaster I thought were quite cool, like different types of shot. So different settings. You had like stun, normal, and I think one of them was focused for like people with shields and stuff. Well, that was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm just excited. It's more storytelling stuff that we can control, so it's not necessarily canon, as it were. It enables us to develop our own head canon. One thing I did really love was the influence, the wanted by the Empire thing. Reminded me very much of Grand Theft Auto, the 5 stars.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thank you for that. I appreciate the breakdown of that. Like I said, I did like what I saw. I actually watched the gameplay trailer itself as well, even though I don't have much knowledge or updated information about it. But it did seem fun.
Get a PlayStation. Don't get an Xbox. Get a PlayStation. PlayStation. Yeah, PlayStation for the gamers.
Okay, gotcha.
PlayStation's for the gamers. Don't go down the light side.
See. I mean, I'm happy. I bought this like gamer thing that's coming like to my hopefully to my porch soon. It's all like 5,000 games, but it's all like the actual old school Nintendo and like the games. I'm excited about that.
I think I've seen the advert for those on like Instagram stories. I think is it like the one that you like plug into the TV?
Yeah, it's an HDMI cable. Christian told me. Actually, Christian got it. He loved it. He plays WrestleFest on it, which is the old WWF game.
Jesus.
Right? I'm like, I got to get it now because I loved WrestleFest back in the day. Yeah. So I got that. So that's coming. That's going to solve my gaming needs for a while. We'll find out. Maybe this isn't coming out until 2024, so maybe by then, that'll be.
Maybe we do some streams of like you playing old vintage games.
It does have some Star Wars games on it. It's some old Star Wars games on there, so maybe I could replay those. There you go. So. All right, fair enough. That's our outlaw talk for today. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to learn more. I've got 2 more pieces of news we're going to drop today. This is one it was not on Star Wars news. I alluded to earlier, so that tells me that this is definitively in the rumor vault at this point. But sometimes stories that are rumors and not clarified as being very likely or whatever, they're still fun to talk about, and it's fun to have that kind of speculation about. But there was rumors from a couple different sources that were supposedly, very well sourced, reliable, whatever. I don't know them, so I can't vouch for them. Idris Elba was supposedly being, quote unquote, eyed for the villain of the new Rey movie. The source stated they couldn't actually confirm whether it meant that they were actually in talks or Lucasfilm was just interested in them or like idea for them. So the couple of pieces to unfold here is A, would we want this? B, do we think Idris would do this? And then what is the likeliness of this coming down? First off, would he do it? I think absolutely. The guy's done pretty much every franchise possible. He's done the Fast and the Furious. He's done Thor. He was in Thor Ragnarok as a Heimdall. He's done the Alien franchise. He's done Star Trek. He's Black Superman.
He trained 12 weeks to become a kickboxer to have one pro fight.
Absolutely.
That's a thing. There's an actual documentary of him doing that.
Absolutely. So would he do a Star Wars film? I think there's no way in hell he wouldn't do a Star Wars film if everything worked out. I don't think he would like just give up everything, but like I think if he got approached to it, I think he would heavily consider it, and I think he'd probably make it happen. Now, the second part is, would we want that? What do you think? No. Oh, talk to me about this. I'm surprised.
I'm so ready for a different type of villain in Star Wars now, other than like a big looming bad. I would much rather, Like a good one was the Power Senator in Jedi Survivor. We only got him for a little bit, but he was like a really like good shit Weasley kind of villain. I think I kind of want something, especially what we know the Rey movie to be about, of like people actively trying to stop the Jedi Order from happening. I think I would kind of prefer someone that's like kind of working in the shadows, like a behind the scenes kind of a villain, not like someone. If you have Idris Elba, it's going to be big, imposing. They're probably going to fight at some point. I don't think that the story that is trying to be told with this movie fits that kind of a villain.
Interesting. I don't know. I will push back a little and say I don't know if we officially even know if that. I mean, we do know that Charmin has said that, and Kathy has said there's this idea of whether do we know if the Jedi want to be or the galaxy want the Jedi back? Yada yada.
Wasn't that the synopsis that they gave though? Was that Rey's trying to?
Well, Rey is trying to
become the Jedi,
rebuilding the Order.
and
It
like
did
people, someone's
say.
trying to stop it.
I think, but I don't know if that was the main crux of the story, or if that was just kind of like the state of the galaxy. I kind of feel like there was no synopsis given. It was just kind of like this is the state of the galaxy is in now, kind of thing. I don't know if it's the main crux or not. I don't know. I can't say for sure.
If it is that, I want someone like a Markion Roy.
Okay.
If anyone who's read the High Republic,
let's be honest. Couldn't Idris Elba play a Markion Roy character?
No, I would.
Okay, Matty. Okay, let's take that aside. If it wasn't you,
if Idris Elba's coming in, I want him big, brute, throwing people across the room with the Force. That's what I want from Idris Elba.
Well, I get that too.
He would be, it'd be great. Put him in Mangold's movie.
Yeah. Maybe that's where the source is wrong. Maybe it's not for Ray. Maybe it is for Mangold's movie. Potentially.
I also want to say, wasn't Yahya wasn't Yahya meant to be Abdul Mateen meant to be
he was going to be in I don't think he's supposed to be the villain necessarily. He was supposed to be in Ray's movie as maybe I think he was supposed to be Ray's like student, but I'm not sure if that's the case or not. Like he was definitely mentioned as far as back when Lindelof was part of the team. No, I think actually no, I take that back. Lindelof, he was like supposed to be one of the leads potentially, and they turned it into a Ray movie. I think that's what happened. Potentially, there's a lot of story we don't know exactly how it went down. He was attached to it, whether he was the villain or not, I don't know. As far as Idris goes, I love Idris Elba, and I'd watch him in anything. So if he's going to be in the Ray movie, I'm happy for it. I think
if he's in there, I'll watch it.
I'm going to watch it regardless. I know that.
I am fully with you on that stance. You and I are perfectly aligned. If Idris Elba is in it, I will watch it. But if I'm the one who's writing the check, I'm like, maybe later.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. For me, I'm like getting this in there as fast as we can because I don't want to get any older.
Yeah, I see we did that fast.
As fast as it is.
Very good.
But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what that means. I mean, I think it could be as simple as, well, honestly, what might have happened. This could absolutely be what happened. I've seen it happen before. Lucasfilm might be like doing some, obviously, they've been doing at least some pre-production work on the Rey movie already. That's obviously been, since before they announced that they were like actively talking about it. I'm betting there's some design work going on. I wouldn't be surprised if a Lucasfilm like did some pre-concept artwork and they designed a bad guy and they just use Idris Elba as the source, like as like kind of like we'll use him as kind of like, because a lot of times I know artists have done that. They'll use actors they know just to kind of like, so this is kind of like how I envision the villain or whatever. And somebody got that leak. Go, oh my God, they must be looking at Idris Elba. It could actually be something as simple as that, and that's why we haven't gotten anywhere past the rumor stage yet. But either way, if it happens, if Idris Elba comes into a Star Wars movie, I'd be happy for it because I like Idris, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens going forward. All right, time to get into our main news story of the day. Our biggest news story today. It dropped. I actually had to change our thumbnails and our ideas around before this happened last minute because it dropped yesterday.
Poor JP.
Poor JP. Shout out to our thumbnail maker, JP. It was dropped as far as much like a year ago or so. We got that slate of Disney movies, the plan of Disney movies. And at that time, it was 2025 was a Star Wars movie, 2027 was a Star Wars movie, and 2029 was a Star Wars movie. Between then and now, there was the kind of dropped information from Hollywood Reporter that maybe they were looking at doing a 2026 film. And there was not an idea whether it was a shift or whether it was, a new film in there. Either way. But unsurprisingly, especially given, and I got to give Disney, I got to cut Disney some slack here because a lot of this I think it has to be due to the strikes and everything else. They're in a shifting timeline. And if this is the usual, we have to tell our shareholders what's going on. This is like, we have to say something. We have to have a plan. So I think this slate is obviously just like, I don't even know if they even believe in the slate necessarily. It's kind of like as of June 13th, if everything works out well and our strikes are over soon, this is what our plan is. Obviously, in 6 months, it's going to change, especially if the strike goes on, it's going to change. But as of June 13th, the Disney slate has changed quite considerably. And there's some interesting parts of that for the Star Wars universe. Specifically, let's see if I can bring this up now. We have all the Marvel movies that have been pushed, which is not a surprise, especially the Kang Dynasty, Avengers of Kang Dynasty, and I believe Secret Wars were both pushed back a full year. They're supposed to be in May of 2025. They're in May of 2026. Avatar was the other big one that got pushed, like to the point of like Avatar 3 is in 2025. 2020 Avatar 4 was pushed to 2029, and Avatar 5 was pushed all the way to 2031. Oh boy, I'm going to be in my 50s at that point when Avatar 3 comes out, and that's okay. Avatar 5 comes out, I should say, rather. But for what does that mean for us, for Star Wars, for Holy Snokes? Now, initially, like I said, we had the 2025 film, 2027 film, 2029 film, then the push to 2026 film. All of a sudden, we now have 2 Star Wars films planned for 2026. May 22nd, 2026, untitled Star Wars film. December 18th, 2026, untitled Star Wars film. And then 2027, on my birthday, December 17th, 2027, for an untitled Star Wars film. Now, this is definitely thrown a loop into a lot of people's ideas because the whole snafu with Solo being in May, Solo being only 6 months after Rise of Skywalker. Oh my God, Disney's learned from that. They're never going to do 2 Star Wars films in that short a time together again. Kathleen Kennedy even came out not too long ago, like 6 months, within the last 6 months, saying, well, we have to have an event now for our Star Wars films. And every 2 years it's going to happen. And also we're going from that to 3 Star Wars films being planned in space of a year and a half, year and a half, and then 2 in 1 year. I'm going to let you talk in 1 second. The idea is, of course, from what's been gathered, the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy film was the 2025 directed film. It's believed, again, nothing from Lucasfilm on this. This is definitely speculation, but it's the speculation that people are considering to be what's going on. Take that for what it's worth. Your miles may vary. That the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy film was going to be 2025, and that's the one that's been pushed back now to May of 2026. The Filoni movie was probably going to be the 2026 December movie. And then 2027 would obviously leave that open for Mangold. Although technically speaking, we don't know about the Taika Waititi one that he's still working on, and the Sean Levy one who he's supposed to be working on after Deadpool 3 is finished. The other bit of that news is Deadpool 3 was actually moved up to, I don't have the date here. I think I might have missed that one. That was actually moved closer. So perhaps that's going to free up Sean Levy for something else. Either way, give me your overall thoughts and let's try to break this down a little bit.
I wish that people would stop holding on to dates because it's almost made me miss. It's made me miss the times when a trailer would just come out and we wouldn't know that something's coming. And that is why Outlaws was such a nice surprise because we didn't know it was coming. How do I say this without sounding really negative? I'm going to choose my words very carefully here. The Star Cruiser proved to me that now Disney is a company that puts content before culture. They are a company that used to pride themselves on the magic of creativity, and now they've scrapped a multi-million-dollar project 14 months into it to appease shareholders for the next quarter. I fully 1000% believe that this slate is going to change in the next 6 to 12 months. This is just something for them to tell their shareholders. Look, we know, guys, we said 2025, but we got the writers' strikes, and we'll have that. We'll have that solved. Don't just trust us. We'll have that solved, and we'll get the movie out quicker. We'll just give us this little bit of an. It's almost like they're asking for an extension on the 2025 one, and they're saying just let it. We'll put that one out in May. Instead of end of 2025, we'll put that one out in May. So you get 2 in 1 year. How about that, guys? You get 2 Star Wars movies in 1 year. I think putting out a movie that's going to be coming out right after Dune Part 3, stupid idea. Putting a movie out right after Avengers Kang Dynasty, even stupider idea. Like that, like Dune, okay, because unless you are a big cinema fan like us, if average Joe has to pick between Dune and Star Wars, 9 times out of 10, someone's going to pick Star Wars. But there are going to be a lot of people that are going to want to see Dune around that same time. And I don't know if they're going to push Dune back because of the strikes. I hope it does, because personally, I do not want those two going up against each other, because all that's going to be in the news cycles is the Star Wars movie flopped to Dune, and Star Wars didn't sell out, and Lucasfilm didn't learn from Solo. And I don't want it. I don't want another 2, or it's not even that. How long has it been since Solo now? And we're still talking about it.
Right.
I'm just I'm more afraid of, not even afraid. I'm more just tired of the discourse around it, and I really want Lucasfilm to just do everything they can to avoid it. And so I am taking the as positive as I can approach of saying this is just Disney trying to appease to the shareholders. Here is Exhibit A of them doing the same thing with Star Cruiser, because let's be fair, that, and I fully believe this, and I've spoken to people who have been on Star Cruiser multiple times. They've said the same thing. This is Disney appeasing the shareholders for the next quarter, because it wasn't making what they thought it was going to, but they didn't give it the amount of time to grow. It probably could. Star Cruiser was something that was very much ahead of its time, and it speaks to something in the music industry. You don't want to be the first person to do something. You want to be the second or the third, because that's when it catches on. And I think in terms of these movies, I think putting 2 out in 1 year, I get why I want to do it, but it also leans to a conversation I was having with a friend the other day. And I want everyone listening to this to hear the word that I am using. Do we need Star Wars on the big screen as often as they are promising? Not do we want it, because yes, we want it. But with the TV shows that they're pumping out, 3 a year, who would have thought we'd even get 1 Star Wars TV show a year, right?
Right.
Do we need it?
It's a good question.
At the start of this,
that's the important question.
At the start of that conversation, I was like, "Yeah, duh, of course we need it." And he was like, "No. Think about what I'm saying. Do we need it? And then he said, "You're someone who loves going to the movies. You love the cinematic experience. Think about the technology that is now available to people in their homes, that people can access now. Is it big IMAX screens that we want to watch these movies on? No, but it's probably the closest thing that you're going to get to it now, that you can have. Imagine us if we'd have been able to have IMAX screens in our rooms as kids,
right?
Or even the TV. I've got a 65-inch TV. I would have never have had that as a kid.
Right.
Surround sound didn't exist when I was a kid.
Right.
But now we have access to this technology, and we can have as close to the cinematic experience as we got. And then I sat down and thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm cool with waiting. I'm okay with waiting. If it means we get something truly spectacular, I'm okay with it. It's gonna suck to wait. I'm gonna be sitting here like a heroin addict, just clawing at my flesh. I give it to me. I want it. I'm gonna be like Dave Chappelle in that sketch. Y'all got any more of those Star Wars movies? But I'm also just guys, stop holding on to these dates because they're going to change.
Well, let me push back on a couple of things a little bit, a little slight pushback. Although I will say again, like let me say right from the top, I don't think even Disney necessarily believes in it. They have to have a plan. Though, as a corporation, they have to have a plan. Can't just say, "Well, we're doing this and this is going to happen." They got to slot these in. This is all to be decided later, to be changed, especially as far as the strike goes. And that is really the X factor. I can't blame them on. I mean, I can blame them as far as being a studio who hasn't paid the writers yet, but as far as like the planning things go. They can't plan until they have this all settled out. But they have to have something to say. So that's what that is. I will get my negative side out of the way. The only negative, the real negative I see here, because I'm going to talk about a positive side of it in a minute, is the Avengers side. It's like having the Avengers on May 1st and then Star Wars on May 22nd. That's just dumb. That's just not good. I just don't. I think that's sabotage of Star Wars as far as I'm concerned, because Marvel has definitely obviously had a better track record, although Marvel's track record hasn't been as good recently as well. It's kind of taking a step back.
This is true.
So there is that. But at the same time, this is an Avengers movie. This is one of the bigger ones. At the same time, just because I don't think that date's necessarily going to hold. We obviously have the potential of recasting of Kang himself at this point with everything going on, and I think it's most likely going to happen. A lot of this could change. That date could change as well. So that's why I'm not getting all up in arms about the idea yet until something is more solidified and it's more solidly based. But as far as everything goes, just because we have 3 films in the year doesn't mean filmmakers are making 3 different films. It could be 3 different great films. Doesn't really matter. Now, I guess that Lucasfilm would be spreading themselves a little thin potentially, especially given the fact that they're also doing TV shows. I understand that concept as well. But I think the biggest difference is a lot of people, again, comparing this to the Solo situation. I think it's different, and here's why. And this is why I've been taking this more positively than a lot of other pundits or fans and Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. May 20, let's say these dates happen. Like, I'm going to predicate this on, we get a movie in May, we get a movie in December, and then we get the next movie in December. And let's also predicate this on the idea that Sharmina Bates, the Rey movie is first, then the Filoni Mandoverse movie, and then Mangold. May comes around as a Rey movie. Now, this will be the first movie in theaters for Star Wars since Rise of Skywalker. Now, 2019 was Rise of Skywalker. That means when this goes into the theater in 2026, it'll have been 7 years since a Star Wars movie has been in theater. Think about that. Like, not counting the Clone Wars movie, but like Revenge of the Sith in 2005. So it's like 2012, right before we started getting to The Force Awakens. There's going to be an appetite for that. Unlike Solo at the time, there's not an appetite for another Star Wars movie at that point. So automatically, I think that movie, any movie you put in Star Wars movie you put in a theater to 2026, I think has got a built-in appetite for fans wanting to return to theaters. So I think that's got to sell. That's already got a selling point. Then in December, you've got Filoni and Filoni's Mandoverse, which already kind of has its own built-in hype machine already because of everything that's been going on in the Mandoverse. Like Mandalorian season 3, criticisms aside, Favreau and Filoni especially, Filoni has that name in the Star Wars brand. And it's the culmination of a lot of events in the current Star Wars universe, which some people will say is the best part about current Star Wars. So, I mean, as far as that goes, so that's got its own built-in spot. So right there, the 2 movies in a year, they have their own separate pulls. Solo didn't have that. Solo was kind of like I'm not sure what we're doing with this. We're also having a young Han Solo replacement. It's in between the trilogy 8 and 9. It just seemed like a little weird comparatively. These have that. And then having a 2027 film ready to go for something different. I think positively speaking, that could be. And if it works out that way and they are both good and they can all start setting us up into a better trajectory moving forward, we could get 2 Star Wars movies a year again if they're good. I mean, Marvel at their peak was doing 3 or 4 a year. Star Wars 2 a year, we could be fine. If we get back to Star Wars 1 a year, perfect. I'm happy with that too. So yeah, I get some of the negativity. I also think there's a lot of positives there. They actually have a lot of faith in what they're doing. I think they have a lot of faith in what they're doing at this point. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter anyway because it's all going to change. So.
Yeah, we're going to get 6 months down the line. They're going to be like, breaking news, Lucasfilm now pushing it back to My thing is, if I don't get Ahsoka on my birthday, you don't get a Star Wars movie on yours. So
That's gonna happen. That's
my
what does
one, my one request, if this does happen, let Filoni's movie go first, because that has a better chance for success with the Mando fans. If they put the Rey movie in right after Avengers, and the worst thing, this is not me saying I want it to happen. I don't want this to happen, but putting it right next to an Avengers movie, it just invites that fandom of like, see, we told you Rey's a shitty character, and they put the Rey movie there and the movie flop. What does that tell you? The Rey, I had like my childhood best friend who I love like a brother. I'm not going to name him, but he listens to this podcast. We had the discussion the other day of the character of Rey, and he's of the opinion of like I think they rushed her too quick. She became the most powerful Jedi, etc., etc. He's not a dickhead about it like most people are, but we got into the discussion, like nearly an argument of like, was like, what you mean like Luke did? And just like, I know the ramifications that will come if they put the Rey movie in that spot and it bombs. And I swear to God, if that happens, I will come out of retirement to smack some of you Star Wars YouTubers around.
Fair, absolutely fair. I will say I'm of two minds, and like I said, going back to what I just said, I think you want to do the Rey movie first because the reason why I think Mandoverse is pretty much going to be successful anyway, no matter where you put it. For the same reasons, it's funny. We actually have similar ideas, but I almost have the different outcome of what I'm thinking, because I think Rey has a better chance to be the first one, because getting that first film back in the theaters gives that an extra appetite, which is why I think give that to the Rey movie to do that. Like Mandoverse can do anywhere, but if you put Mandoverse in and then 6 months later is the Rey movie, then that sets the Rey movie up to fail potentially. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with your game plan on it.
The way I'm seeing it is look at what movies it's going to be going up against.
Right. And that,
I would rather have the Mandoverse versus Avengers and Rey versus Dune. Like, if we're doing Star Wars versus, and I know we shouldn't be doing this, but in this case, they're treating it like a business. They're treating it competitively. They want it. That's what the box office is. It's a competition. Who makes more money, baby? We got to make our money back.
Right.
I believe that Dave Filoni's Mandoverse movie has a better chance of standing up against Avengers solely in the box office and the numbers and the statistics part of this conversation. I think that movie stands a better chance because it has everyone in the pandemic was watching The Mandalorian.
Right.
When Disney Plus dropped, that was the title that launched with it. So everyone's going to be like, hell yeah, Mando movie, let's go. A movie that comes after a very divisive trilogy, people are more inclined to be like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Let's go watch that when we have time.
I don't disagree with you. I understand where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I also have the other. I say, like, on one hand, there's this. On the other hand, there's this. Right. So I get what you're saying. Also, I will actually argue there is one strong point to argue for your way of having Mando first, is that depending on how things go, if Grogu were to appear in the Rey movie, it would be interesting to have
him both.
He should be in the Mandoverse movie first. That when we have Rey, it's not in the future. Then we don't, because then it's like it's going to happen. So you have to set up in the Mandoverse movie, see what happens then, and then put him in the Rey movie. Maybe that's how they connect it to.
What if like 50 in our years is like 1,000 in Grogu years, and he was also in Mangold's movie?
Yoda only lived 900 years, so I don't think.
What if Grogu's in all three?
I don't think he's in all three. I think that's a little much. But yeah, I do like your enthusiasm.
But he'll be 900 at Rey's movie, so he'll be like a baby at the Dawn of the Jedi movie.
25,000 years ago?
Yeah.
No. Yoda's not even born at that point. Come on.
It could work.
basic math, Matt. I don't know about UK educational system. I don't want to admit it, but
It's
that's
not that
basic
great.
math.
Either way, I think we will get a Baby Yoda in Dawn of the Jedi. I just don't think it'll be Dave. I don't think it'd be Dave.
No, okay, fine. But I guess so. Yeah, that's where I stand as well. Though I think that we will get something like that, and I understand the idea behind it. I just think I also have to say that across the board, that it makes sense of the Ray movies first, as far as the timeline of how things are being developed, because if the 2026 for the Mandoverse movie, which is going back to the original plan, which was 2026 was the Mandoverse movie to begin with, the December 2026 version. That gives us time with the Mando season 4 and all that kind of stuff, the TV series coming out. Whereas the Rey film being in 2025, getting pushed back because of the strike, means that would be the May 2026 film. Could they switch it because of that? They could, but we don't know. But I guess that's enough for hammering. We've kind of said all we could say about that. Anything else is just going to baseless speculation.
Either way, it's not going to happen. So
we'll be back in a couple months and talking about the next set of dates then. So, all right, let's get into the rest of our show today. We actually have a smaller, meatier topic, so to speak, as we try to do something different outside the news break.
It's the rumor that Lucasfilm is selling. Disney is selling Lucasfilm back to George Lucas. I will brain you.
No, we're getting into we're past the news now, Matt.
Okay.
We're going past the news now. I'm not going to even dignify that with a comment. Yeah, that's another story. But we had an idea. I had an idea this week. We always try to pitch something about like what else we can talk about as far as like beyond, because we like to do news. If we were a Star Wars podcast only, if we only had a Star Wars podcast to do like all our Star Wars content, we'd have a news show, we'd have a review show for each show, and we'd have like other shows. We only get a chance to do one thing a week, so we try to like to do the news and then do some other talk where you can talk about other Star Wars stuff as just part of the fun. And I'm hoping you guys enjoyed that as well. Last week we had a pretty good time talking directors and their pitches. That was a lot of fun. This week I kind of came up with this idea and talked to Maddie about it. And I said, let's talk about lines. I know Star Wars isn't known for its dialogue. It's been clunky dialogue, etc. George Lucas writes
McClunky dialogue.
McClunky dialogue, exactly. But sometimes you watch a character and they say something, and that just defines that character for you. And so we want to come up with 5 characters and lines from the saga. Anywhere, it could be from movies, TV, anything where you want to go. And what are 5 lines that define characters for you? And we both kind of off the bat wanted to like take off some things, like exclude some things. Like we didn't want to do hello there for Obi-Wan because that's not really defined. It defines him as far as the public consciousness goes. When you say hello there, you know it's Obi-Wan.
It's also a cop out. That's a cheap one. Like
Obi-Wan.
You have to think a little bit harder than hello.
And same with Vader, I am your father kind of thing, like that kind of thing. I don't want to try to do that. I want to try to go a little bit deeper, potentially. It doesn't mean they can't be iconic, because I have one in my list that's completely iconic for the character, but it definitely, at the same time, defines the character for me.
If you're going to say McClunky, I will brain you.
It is McClunky from... I will actually let you go first, Maddie. What is a line and a character that you want to talk about?
Mine is almost as ridiculous as McClunky.
Fair enough.
Almost. The character of Din Djarin saying, "Is that a bench?" Now,
how did that define Din Djarin for you? Go ahead.
Everyone is probably thinking, Maddie, what have you been taking? That you wouldn't go with this is the way, or no. That line represents the cluelessness of Din Djarin to the wider galaxy. Like, he doesn't know what a Jedi is. He's essentially an everyman. Like, he has his job, he has his kid, he has his adopted family that he goes back to sometimes, that he takes food back to. But like everything that just the wider galaxy, he's completely clueless to. The Force, the Jedi, like all this, he has no idea. And it really represents to me the wonder of experiencing Star Wars for the first time. Like we are living through Din Djarin in that moment where he's like, is that a bet? It's like someone like looking at Grogu and being like, is that a baby Yoda? Okay, like looking at the Cantono and being like, is he holding an ice cream maker? Is that an ice cream maker? Or like the mod gang would be like, are they just riding on Vespers with no wheels? It's that pure like innocent bliss of just being like, is that a bench?
It's not a line I would consider. But I love how you say that. I love how you bring that to the table, and you're not wrong in a way. I understand what you're saying, because I do remember like that when he said that, I chuckled out loud. And I said, "This is that character. That is." He just has that little whimsiness about him.
Clue.
For someone who is as experienced as Din is, does have that little bit of naivety to him, which it comes across every once in a while as a one who's been sheltered all his life as far as a cult goes, the cult of he grew up in, basically. Interesting. I like that aspect of it. Very fun. Okay, my first one. I'm gonna get this one out of the way. Get this one right out of the way. This is the mascot of the podcast, Hondo Ohnaka from the Clone Wars. Insolent? We're pirates. We don't even know what that means.
Yep.
And it was either that or this is no longer profitable. Both of them.
We've heard that line enough. That line enough.
The insolence one is actually my favorite line that Hondo ever says. And the reason why it defines him for me is he is the character who is bold, brash, a little dumb, like as far as like educationally wise.
Yes.
Educationally wise, I'm saying he's street smart as all hell. But as far as like big words and vocabulary, that's this thing. He's a pirate. He is a lovable pirate. He's saying this to freaking Darth Maul. Like, this is a guy saying, who gets away with saying this to Darth Maul in living? Only Hondo, because he's got like the luck of he's got this lucky rabbit's foot in his back pocket.
He also has 2 Jedi behind him.
Well, no, because they're not even there at the moment. They're all on the other side.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
he knows they're there.
That's wrong. Well, that's a funny part. The other part, when he starts talking to his crew, that same episode, like, how tough can they be? They are running away from Kenobi. That whole episode honestly fits Hondo for me. But that we're talking about lines specifically. It's him with his pirate crew. It's a funny line. It tells you this character is a comic character. He's a bullshit artist, but he's cocky as hell. It defines everything I love about the character and why I like to see him. Every time I see him, I can't wait for any time he opens his mouth, because it's usually some kind of gem coming out from his mouth. That's my call. That's my take on Hondo.
It also reminds me of the line of you'll remember this as the day that you almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow.
Very, very similar. It is exactly that kind of thing. The bravado of the character.
Even though it might be somewhat false confidence, but like he still has that like I'm not gonna let you see that I'm terrified, but I deep down right now I'm shaking.
So I get to a dark Sith Lord who has a lightsaber, and you're just like gonna go, we don't even know. I love it. I love it so much. So as a reason why he's in the O of our Holy Snokes. All right, Matty, go ahead with your next line there.
My next one is there is a fine line between neutral and amoral, which is said by Count Dooku in the Clone Wars. And this is something that I have been experiencing recently. I used to keep my political affinities to myself.
Okay.
I would not, if politics came up in a conversation, I'd be like, you guys can talk about that. Yeah, I'll just be over here talking about Star Wars and other stuff. But it also speaks to him as a character, because he was pushed to the breaking point of, I can't stand here and do nothing. I can't stand here and say nothing. I have to pick a side, and I'm going to pick the side that is right for me. Ultimately, both sides were in the wrong, but there is a fine line between, what's the phrase there? Silence is complicity. Of like, if you say nothing, then you're complicit in it.
Right.
And I think that's it relates to me, because like I've become a lot more vocal in my opinions on the way the world is, and I've lost friends because of it. I've had arguments with people because of it, but in my heart, I know to be right. I don't side with either the left or the right, and I see flaws in all arguments, and I'm not afraid to speak out on them. And I think hearing that line, I was like, yeah, like that this is a man who is very calm, very wise, and he's not afraid to speak out against people that he respects, because he does respect Yoda, he does respect Qui-Gon, he probably respects a lot of the council,
Right.
but he'll speak out against them if he feels it's the right thing to do.
I like that. I don't have anything else to add to that, but it's a very good. I always thought that Count Dooku was a character who I'd love to see get more development in the way. Like, we obviously know more about him. I love the Tales of the Jedi stuff we got from him. Got to see him pre fallen, and we kind of saw him go down that path. But he had at one point had intentions that were good. He in a way, he wasn't necessarily wrong about the Jedi. That's the heartbreaking thing about it. He wasn't wrong about the Jedi. He went the wrong way and took it a little far, combined with his own arrogance and his own, I don't know, lust for power is the right word, but he wanted to be in control of things.
I think his intentions were always pure. I just think he made it the same as everyone else. He made a deal with the devil.
Oh. And that tainted him and darkened his soul. I like that. I like that quite a bit. Okay, I'm going to go on to a line from episode 8, The Last Jedi. And some people might, this is like, you're going to get this from this character. It's a line that Yoda has. Pass on what you've learned. Strength, mastery, but weakness, folly, failure also. Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher.
Failure is. Yeah.
Defines Yoda on such a level for me. There's some people, the detractions from Last Jedi were of kind of like somehow like Luke's character wasn't, whatever. They had problems with how Luke's character depicted. And that's fine. If you didn't like it, that's on you. Whatever. You have your own depictions of the character, your own headcanon. But I think Yoda has a great kind of underrepresented arc in the whole saga, and underrepresented and like not talked about a whole lot. This is a guy who starts off in the High Republic, adventuresome. He's like a Jedi Knight in full swing. He's a master already, but he's definitely in the forefront of things. You get him to come to the prequels where he is the Grand Poobah, but he knows there's stuff that's happening that's wrong. Like, throughout the prequels, you can tell that he's not exactly confident in everything that the Jedi are doing. He's not thrilled with how the Jedi Order are going, and he would like to change things, but he really kind of can't because of the Clone Wars is going on. The war is going on. He's kind of got to shift things aside. His conversations with Anakin, some of his conversations were amazing, where he actually literally just comes out and says the Jedi become arrogant. He knows that there's problems within the Order, and then they fall. He blames himself partially, and not necessarily wrongly. I mean, Yoda has to share some of the blame for what happened in a way, because he was in charge. He was the Grand Poobah. He's the wisest creature in the galaxy, probably the wisest man, wise Jedi we've ever seen. He has that depth of knowledge, depth of spirit, but he's also got some weakness inside of him, which makes him a fallible character, which is what makes him such a great character. He's not perfect. He has his flaws. His flaws were that he didn't act on certain instincts he had with the Jedi Order. He watched the Jedi fall, and he tries to build them up. He's still making mistakes, even with Luke during training. Luke, he doesn't want to train Luke because he's too old and everything else. But he's learned things. By the time he gets to the Last Jedi and he has this conversation with Luke again, he realizes everything. He's like, yeah, you got to pass on everything you learned. Yes, strength and mastery is important. Yes, you got to be able to be strong in the Force, to be able to have that connection with the Force. But goddamn, it isn't weakness and failure can teach you even more sometimes than your successes are. And he knows that deeply. And like, it really connects me with how much of an arc Yoda's had and what a great character Yoda has. Because as he's almost put up as this like perfect representative of the Jedi, the wisest Jedi, the strongest Jedi, the most powerful Jedi. And yet the heart of his story is failure throughout his entire arc. And there's something special about that to me, is that at the end of it, he's able to recognize that, and he doesn't think he's perfect. It's almost like everybody else thinks he's perfect. He knows he's not perfect, but he's learned so much, and he's still learning that. At the end of the day, even by the time the Last Jedi passed 900 years, even when he was a Force ghost at this point, he's still learning. He's still learning. So that comes back to full circle. He is the perfect representative of a Jedi, what a Jedi should be to a degree. He just needs to learn to act on his own sometimes about with his gun. Sometimes more. But I love that line. That's my favorite. That's my favorite line, hands down, at Last Jedi. And it meant so much to me when I watched it.
That's a good one to pick because my next one's going to lead right into it.
Ooh, okay.
It's from Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
My grandfather used to tell me, because in like primary school, I was a pretty good kid. Like I would get like all A's and tests and stuff, and I would think I was hot shit because of it.
Right.
And then my granddad would he would sit me down and be like, "Listen, dude, there's a difference between book smart and street smart." And one day, like he would always tell me this. And one day we were watching Attack of the Clones, and Dexter Jetster says the line, "You would think that you Jedi have more respect for the difference between knowledge and wisdom." And he shoved me. He was like, "See, it just goes to what you're saying of like, you can be the smartest person in the room, but you can also be the dumbest at the same time." All it takes is you can have a room full of idiots who have no idea what to do. All it takes is for the smartest idiot to just put their hand up and go like, "Me, I know what I'm doing." And you have and that's kind of like a very, very crude base way of like the way I saw the Jedi Order at the peak of their powers. It was a bunch of, the Jedi Council, I should say, was a bunch of idiots, and the smartest idiot in the room decided, it was like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for years. It's fine. Just follow me." No, like there is no like one way of doing it. Like people's backgrounds, people's ways of life are always different. There's never one way. Like the big quote of The Mandalorian is, "This is the way." But we're learning now, like there's not one way. It's just a cool catchphrase.
Right.
There's not one way, and there is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. I have met a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me, but their way of life is very skewed to their upbringing. A lot of these same people that I'm speaking about have had very sheltered upbringings. They went to private schools. They learned certain things. They never experienced certain things in the world. They were handed certain opportunities. I wasn't. So I have a different outlook on life. So when we talk and when we converse, we could be talking about some things, and I'm just like, you really have no idea what you're talking about. But because you're so smart, you are programmed to think, because you are so well educated, you are programmed to think that you are the smartest person in the room, and what you are talking about, what you are saying is the exact right thing, when really you never experienced it. So you're wrong, but you are too proud to admit it. And that line from Dex, I was just like, God damn, the old man next to me was right.
That's a great example of Star Wars. A line from a small character. I don't mean small, big. The big character is a small size.
Don't let Brian Ward hear you call him.
I was about to say, shout out to Brian Ward. You know me. I love Dexter Jester. Small in terms of screen time. That's what I mean. But he gets that wisdom. I think that's why Brian Ward loves the character, for example. That's why I love the character, is that he is such a full character in a brief amount of time. And it's those kind of lines that make you think this is a guy who's lived life. This is a guy who actually is wise beyond his years, and probably wiser than half the Jedi in the council. It is a beautiful statement. It is true. It is something that we don't think about often, but there's definitely that wisdom and knowledge are completely different things. And actually, in a way, goes back to the first thing. It goes back to Hondo. Hondo is definitely wise. Not a lot of knowledge as far as, but he's very wise about things going on. I would love to get Dexter and Hondo together. I really want to see that happen.
Oh, that would
honestly,
be great.
Great. They'd have a great
do an actors if Dex and Hondo.
Star Wars in universe actor, scoundrel on scoundrel, so to speak. You know, Dex. I know he's a responsible diner owner, but there's definitely some scoundrel background there. Dex and
Here's let me frame this for you. You remember Anthony Bourdain's show where he would travel all around and he would speak to different people. He would take people from different. I remember he had Nick and Nate Diaz, the UFC fighters, on one episode, and he took them to a vegan restaurant. What if we had like Dex like touring the galaxy, trying different foods with different characters, and he takes Hondo into like some seedy dive bar, and they just have like an Anthony Bourdain style conversation about their lives while eating Star Wars like greasy spoon food.
I am all in, my friend. I am all in. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. What a great pick. What a great pick. I love it. All right. Then moving on to my next line. This one is probably a very this is one I mentioned before as being very predictable. If you're gonna, this is one you almost probably would have excluded potentially, but I decided to go with it anyway because I love it so much. From The Empire Strikes Back. It's 2 words. Han Solo. I know. I love this line from Han Solo. It has been the major definition of Han Solo for me for years. In 2 words, he showcases his loyalty, his love, his scoundrelness, his wanting to comfort. At the same time, guy going to be a little bit arrogant and cocky about it, almost like try to set people at ease. Done by Harrison Ford in a way like they tried so many different lines. This is the one they came up with, and it just kind of like was like it clicked. And why did it click? Because this is Han Solo. I love you. I know. He's not going to say it back. He can't say it back. He's Han Solo. He's too cool to say I love you.
Definitely not in front of Vader, because like if he says it in front of Vader, then it's just like, well, now I'm giving you a free tool here.
Right.
Like,
just I know. And it's such a beautiful moment. I get chills every time I see it go on. There's a couple of lines like that do it for me for Han Solo. But this is the one. If I have to pick just one to defy Harrison Ford and Han Solo,
I got one.
I know.
Don't worry. I got a Han line. Don't worry.
Do you have a Han line? All right.
I get covered, but not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, do you have any comment, or do you want to go on to your next one?
My next one kind of expands on my last one. Mm-hmm. It's one that I repeatedly tell if I have a shitty day, there are days where I will go to the gym and I will get my backside absolutely handed to me. And I will go in with the ego of like, look, I am the most technical. Like I know how to do this, and this. Like I've watched enough fights that I know how to do this, and this. But my coach will still put an ass whooping on me.
Right.
And then I have to sit in my shattered ego and just remember a line from the most maligned movie in the franchise, from the Clone Wars. Captain Rex, experience outranks everything.
Yes.
I have used that myself when like people are frustrated with where they're at in life, and like I'm just talking to friends and they're like, look, I'm not happy where I'm at in life. And I've said, I'm like, look, dude, experience outranks everything. Because it's true.
It is very true. And it does define Rex as well, though, because Rex has been there since the beginning of the Clone Wars. And it's a line that obviously it was so important, so defining that between him and Ahsoka. They repeated it later on in Rebels, the same situation, the same line. In my experience, sorry, excuse me, it does outrank everything. And Rex has a hard time being like emotional as far as like heartfelt goes. Like you get that moment at the end of Clone Wars in Siege of Mandalore when he has that moment where he gets upset because like they're going to try to kill us, and then like, Ahsoka takes off the helmet. He's got the tear coming down, but he always speaks in this terms of military, like experience outranks everything, and he uses that. He uses certain ways to kind of show what's going on deeper down inside, a place where you can, let loose a little bit. And it is the defining moment for him, a defining moment for the clones. He actually speaking for the clones themselves. And what a great relationship he has with Ahsoka. And I really, you saying that just reminded me again. And I really hope that we do get to see him in Ahsoka, because him and Ahsoka have unfinished business, I feel. And maybe we'll even hear that line one more time in live action this time, potentially.
I love that. Especially because you mentioned the end of the Clone Wars. It's Ahsoka's experience that saved them both.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's her experiences that save them. It's her, she comes up with the plan to get them out of there.
An experience that was partially trained by Rex growing up. Because Ahsoka learned from Anakin, but she also learned from Rex the battles as well. She learned a lot from Rex the clones. So she led them. She learned from them as well. So
yeah, the big thing of it is I always I like to live that if I die tomorrow, would I be okay with my life? Would I be okay with everything I've done? And it's just like, guys, there is more out there in the world than sitting behind your computer screen. Like, go out, experience the world, experience like other cultures that like you may not necessarily have either agreed with or even been able to touch.
Right.
Go out and just experience the world, because when your time comes, it's that's going to matter. Are you happy with the life that you lived? Are you happy with the experiences that you had?
Yeah, it's hard to top that, man. It's a great choice. One. Oh, you do? Okay, fair. All right, I got two more. One of them, it's not deep as one we've been talking. It's not as deep at all, but I kind of still love it. It's a line that was in a trailer, but it's also in episode 1 of The Phantom Menace. If there's any line that defines Darth Sidious, wipe them out. All of them. We have a lot of redemption in Star Wars. A lot of redemption with Anakin Skywalker, with Asajj Ventress, even to a degree, a little bit of Maul at the end, when Maul dies in Obi-Wan's arms, talking about how Luke will not vengeance on him, but you know what I'm saying. There's all just kind of like a little bit of moments of redemption and goodness and characters. Sidious is really the only character I think that is fully all out evil. Snoke, but Snoke is a form of Palpatine anyway. It's Sidious anyway, so I'm not gonna count him. But that's a line that has defined Sidious for me for years. I use that in my everyday life. Just every once in a while, I'll just say that just out of nowhere, like people look at me funny. But it defined what that was going to become for me when I watched that trailer the first time way back in 1999. That's trailer, maybe 98 when the trailer came out. I can't remember. It was 98 when the trailer came out.
98, because I remember it being on TRL.
Yep, there it is. That's right. And Godzilla, before Godzilla, I think, as well, potentially. And Men in Black, or not Men in Black. It's Meet Joe Black. That's what it was.
Meet Joe Black.
That was the one. But hearing Sidious, Ian McDiarmid in that low tone, that growly tone that he does, coming back to a character that he had played in 1983. It's just a powerful, powerful line, and it dictates exactly who Sidious is. Wipe them out, all of them. They're all gonna die because he has no chill, no fucks given. He is gonna win any way possible, and that's just all there's to it.
Yeah, there is no more evil than someone who just wants to essentially reform the galaxy in his image. Very much like a very political leader from the 1940s that George liked to take inspiration from for his villain.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you think about and if you think about the villains of our time, he is one that is definitely, there's no redeeming for what he did. So it's the same with Sidious. There's no There's no redeeming.
Absolutely. We're on board with that. So, all right. You got one more, I believe, right? One more?
I got one more, and I got to shout out my boy Zach the Maker. He makes these really awesome challenge coins, and I keep this one with me everywhere I go.
Oh, wow.
This is in my jacket pocket every morning. I have this. I look at this. I'm quite a superstitious person, so like I have this with me because like this is genuinely, I believe this brings me good luck. And it says, "Never tell me the odds."
There you go. You know what? That's exactly the other line that should have been mentioned. Absolutely. Go ahead.
The flip side says, "I've got a bad feeling about this." So whenever I get like feelings of anxiety, I just look at that side, flip it over. Never tell me the odds. And it was Han Solo in a moment where he's writing down the odds that it's not going to work out for him, and he did, like, without looking, he just goes, "Never tell me the odds." Just like, shut up and let me do my thing. And that is just it's a constant reminder. And I'm going to shout out I can never say it, but go to @Zach the Maker on Instagram and look at these beautiful challenge coins that he makes. You see there's the Millennium Falcon. But that is a line that just reminds me that, like, you can do anything. 5 to 10 years ago, I never would have like thought, me, a podcaster. No, I'm not. I don't have the public speaking, the anywhere near the charisma or anything to like do anything public speaking or public facing.
Right.
But yet here we are. We're doing it 2-3 times a week, and like I enjoy having these conversations with people. I'm now getting back out on stage, and it's like it helps me with my confidence. And it's just like every single day I look at this quote, and it just makes me think I can go out and do whatever I want.
Right.
And I may fail, but you ain't going to tell me that I'm going to fail.
Absolutely. It's funny. I when I thought about this assignment that I gave myself, I didn't even I thought about Han Solo. The "I know" came so quickly to me that I didn't even consider it a line. But when you mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, that one works. It's amazing how both those lines for me can completely showcase the character. In some ways, yours might be better than mine in a way. Absolutely. So I get that to a degree.
It's not about better though, is it? It's like what you take from the character.
It might better define Han Solo as a character in some ways for some people, but yeah, for me, it's still I know. But I like it. I love it a lot. I like the fact we're having this conversation. It's kind of great to hear both sides of these, all these different sides of angles of things. I love it. I do have one more left. It's one I've mentioned on the show before that has really it's really become great in our household. Me and my son actually love it both. It's not a typical one at all. It is from Bad Batch. And it's from Plan 99.
Don't say it. No, la 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 la. Why you gonna do
it? It is Hunter.
Oh, whew.
It's Hunter. I know what you think I'm going to say. And you know what? That's not wrong. That's another one I would think. I considered it. But it is in the same scene. Wrecker, get him on board. And I get goosebumps when I hear that simple line every single time I watch that scene. Even more than Tech saying, I still watch it every once in a while. I watched it last night.
What is wrong with you?
I'm a masochist, I guess. I don't know. Because to me, and maybe it's because I'm a father, maybe that's what it is, but I kind of view Hunter as the father figure of the Bad Batch figure. And this whole Bad Batch, if you look at the whole history of the Bad Batch, they are the superheroes of the Star Wars universe. The superheroes, the clones. They were the clones that had the superpowers to a degree, developed a little bit further. And they were the ones who you brought in when regular clones, maybe even Jedi, couldn't get something done. You brought them in to be the special force. You'd have the whole group. There's only 5 of them, but they're going to get that shit done. And I think it's kind of what happened is you expect them to get it done. They've never really failed. They've always succeeded, even when they had moments of weakness, and they had it. Bad Batch season 1, like the Camino thing, they had some losses and some defeats, so to speak, but they always survived as a family unit to fight the next day, even with Crosshair, leaving them or whatever. Hunter always had that I got blind faith that everything would always be okay to a degree, not naivety. It's like that's the experience, and then get to this point where Tech is literally dangling off the cart, and he's like, "What's going on?" And Echo tells him, "I can't do it. Like it's being ripped aboard," and Hunter like looks, and he can't believe that they're not gonna make it. Like he looks at, he's like, why haven't you gotten him on board yet? Like, no, it's an impossible task. Obviously, the whole thing breaks down. Wrecker can't get him on board. Tech can't climb up fast enough. There's guns flying. There's ships blasters everywhere. But Hunter can't believe that in his head. He's like, get him on board. What are you doing?
Yeah, this is like, why are you waiting? Like, you should have had him up by now.
Ready? Yeah. You have to do this. You are going to do this because we don't fail. We don't fail. We live. We survive. That's what we do. And D. Bradley Baker put so much emotion in that line. So much emotion in that line. Get him on board, and you hear it. You hear the throat. You hear the tingle of power, emotion. And it's a simple line, but man, it gets me every single time, and it completely defines who Hunter is. He is the one who expects everything to work out, and then when it's not working out, he can't accept it. He can't fathom it, and it's going to define him moving forward for season 3, absolutely for sure. So,
yeah.
There we go. That's my final final line. And what actually honestly inspired this whole idea in the first place.
Okay, cool. I thought you were going with the Tech line, and I would have had to have logged off right here and then. But
that was actually that one I considered at the same time, but I didn't want to put 2 from the same episode.
this would have been the last episode of Holy Snokes. Don't make me relive that again.
All right, and that we're gonna wrap up today. Look, I'm still cracking. My voice, I made it through the episode. Not much of a crack. Hopefully, it'll get better for next week or whatever. But yeah, where can the folks find you, Matty?
You can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner. You can find my band Mourner, MOURNER, on all DSPs. You can find me every Saturday here on PLD Projects for MID Classified. This week we are doing Mission Impossible 3 with our seasonal co-host. I refuse to use the term guest. Seasonal co-host, friend, and patron, Matty Kearns, and it was a fun as hell discussion. I really had a good time.
And I did as well. Find me at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me as aforementioned Mission Impossible Declassified. 2 Mediocre White Dudes on Film. We are just released our episode on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Crown Jewels going down this week. We are doing Good Company, and then next week on Crown Jewels is the one and only Bohemian Rhapsody. Big one there. Big one coming up there. A lot of other stuff going on. Just take a look at the podcast. Take a look at the channel and see what's going on. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, like we mentioned before. Like, get in there. Support the channel as best you can. If you want to support even further, patreon.com/PLD Projects for Austin Cadell, Jeremiah Morris, Matthew Kearns, who got onto the show as being a wonderful supporter. Brendan Buckingham, Jeff Alterman, Kelly W. Could not do this without you. Really appreciate all of you. We really help keep the lights on and make this a thing that happens, actually. But yeah, I can't wait for this stuff to continue. We got another guest seasonal co-host coming up on this show in a couple of weeks. We're going to have Jeremiah Morris stopping by a few weeks. So that should be a lot of fun as well. But yeah, until then, though, I love this show. I love talking Star Wars with you, Matty. It's always a pleasure. And I can't wait. We got Ahsoka coming up soon. We got the Mandalorian season 3 gallery coming up soon. But yeah, stick around for more. And, as always, may the Force be with you. Always.